Today I'm going to be exposing my entire college transcript. Whether this is a good idea, I don't know, probably not, but I'm going to be showing you all every class I took, how I did in them, and what I most regret, but also what I'm really glad I did. So hopefully that can help you all as you continue through college. Alright, so I guess this page here is good for context. 2018 shows up here because I did take a couple of summer classes at UNC between my junior and senior year of high school, which I'll get into when it gets to the actual transcript, but that's why that's showing up all the way up here, even though I didn't start until 2019. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I was leaning towards business, so I just selected that as my major at that point. Come early 2020, I don't get into the business school, so that goes to undecided. And I kind of searched for that whole semester, and I applied to the media and journalism school, which I get into in that following spring. So mid-2021, I have a media and journalism major, and then throughout this time I'm still applying to the business school for the minor, and I actually do end up getting into it, so I start that the spring of my junior year, and you can see that right here. But yeah, let's get into it. Beginning of undergraduate record. I'm kind of like refreshing on all of this and reacting to it as well. It's been a while since I've looked at this. But yeah, like I said, we started out the summer of 2018, and the two classes that I took at UNC that summer, obviously this is before even applying to UNC, so I had to pull some kind of strings to get in, just email a few people. It wasn't too difficult though. But it was Econ 101 and STOR 155. And I knew at the time that these were both prerequisites to apply to the business school, so that's kind of why I wanted to take them, but I was also thinking of doing econ as another potential major, so I figured that 101 would count regardless. And still, as a high schooler at this point, these classes were brutal, I will say that. It was so fast-paced and very high level from what I was used to, but it was the only thing I was doing that summer, so I managed to pull out an A in econ, which I still don't know how. And I'm so glad I ended up taking that class over the summer because I've heard horror stories from people that have had semester-long Econ 101. And STOR 155 I managed to grab an A- in, which was probably fair. So I got two prerequisites to applying to the B school out of the way before I even started college. So then we get into the fall of 2019, my first semester freshman year. Comp 116. Why did I take this class? That was, it was the beginning of freshman year. Like I said, I really didn't know what to do, so I thought maybe I would go into comp sci or stat or something like that. So I decided to take 116 because it was like a Python focused class. But John Magikis, as some of you probably have had, is a fairly strict professor. Like, I had very minimal coding experience in the past, and I do think that kind of hurt me in this class, and I just was not getting it. So in October of freshman year, I ended up changing it to pass-fail, and I ended up passing. So that never counted really to my transcript, but I guess it was good to get that like very basic Python knowledge of whatever I retained from that class. And then English 105 is, you know, the typical freshman required English class. I did fine in that. I got an A. You usually take it with like a grad student teacher, and they're often pretty relaxed. So in French 105, I took 3 levels of French in high school, and then after taking the placement test here, I still had to take 2 more levels of it to get my full foreign language credit. And I realized foreign languages in high school are a lot easier than foreign language in college. It wasn't even like terrible to learn, it was just a lot of work and a lot of practice problems and a lot more emphasis on like speaking, which I will say did help, but it was not an easy class, and I actually ended up getting a B in that. And then LFIT 129, I don't think they offer this anymore, which kind of sucks, and I was sad when I heard that because this was like one of the most unique classes I've ever taken. Obviously every person is required to take one lifetime fitness class at one point throughout their term at UNC, and I guess I got skiing at the very last semester that they offered it. We barely did anything during the actual semester. We just played random sports and occasionally talked about skiing. But then over winter break, we had a 4-day trip to the North Carolina mountains. Hey guys, we out here on Sugar Mountain. Where we actually went skiing, took lessons, and yes, it did cost like $300 or $400 extra to tuition, but I think it was worth it. Everything was included, and you know, I got a credit from that, so that was pretty awesome. And then genuinely, I don't know how this happened, but I somehow got an A-. I don't know how I got an A- in LFIT. Like, you have to try to not get an A, and that's one of my more embarrassing grades in all of college. I never got like any results or my grade in my final back or anything, so I'm assuming I just didn't do that well on the final, which is like such an easy final. Anyways, it was only 1 credit, so it didn't really impact me, but that was annoying. Plan 101 was just a general education class, which was kind of interesting. Like, I had always been like sort of interested in urban planning and urban studying, but it was a lot of writing, a lot of bland lectures, and it was honestly a fairly difficult class, especially first semester freshman year. I ended up with a B in that as well. So yeah, freshman year, at least for what my standards were back then, was a wake-up call at this point, getting only 1A in a class. And this first year seminar was really interesting. Actually, it was about religion and Islam specifically. Very discussion based. There's one project at the end. I think the grade that I got was fair. I didn't participate too much, which I kind of regret, which I probably could have gotten an A for, but ended up with an A- in that and got like 3 gen eds from that class, which was great. 2020 spring, obviously after COVID, the option to pass-fail was there, even for classes that you were required to take to graduate, but I only ended up using it for 1. As you can see, it was French 203 down there, which again, like I said, college level foreign language is not easy, especially at UNC. I think I was gonna get like a B or a B plus in it, but at that point my GPA was above that, so there was no point in not pass-failing, if that makes sense. Especially since French isn't going to have anything to do with what I was doing in the future. Another first year seminar I took that knocked out gen eds. It was a very random Navigating America one. Pretty easy, again, very discussion based, got an A in that. Photography 1 I took for my VP credit, and it sounds like a fun, easy class, and it was pretty fun and interesting and good to learn, but there's actually like a lot to it. I spent a lot of time editing photos and going out and taking photos for that class, and I ended up with an A- in it. Busy 102, which is now Busy 100, was the next prerequisite I needed to apply to the B school. It was a half semester class, so that's why it's 1.5 credit, and I got an A- in that, which I actually kind of clutched up. I had a B plus most of the semester, and if y'all watch my day in the life vlog that I made 4 years ago in freshman year, I was actually studying and took that exam in that vlog. And then this is when I took my first Mejo class, even though I didn't know fully that I was going to do a Mejo major at this point. Solid class, got an A- in that as well, which I was actually a little upset about because there wasn't that many exams. It was a lot of projects, so I think my group mates didn't do it. We're not gonna blame anyone for that. But yeah, at this point I brought my GPA up a little bit. It was 3.63, which isn't amazing, but it's pretty solid for after freshman year. Then we moved to summer between freshman and sophomore year, and I took Econ 410. Thank God I got that class over with during a COVID summer, because there's literally nothing else to do that whole summer. So I spent, I kid you not, like 5-6 hours of every single day going to class, then doing the homework for that class, because that's how summer classes are. And I like really grinded for the A for that one and ended up paying off. Thank God. And at this point, 410 was still a prerequisite to apply to the B school, even though it is not anymore. Be thankful for that. And then we move into 2020 fall, start of sophomore year. I took a very random archaeology of food class, again for gen ed, because 2 of my close friends were taking it and they recommended it to me, and I was like, I'll try it out. I got an A- in it. I did not understand like half of what they were saying. To be honest, I didn't do many of the readings, so I'm okay with the A- there. Busy 405 I took because it just opened up at the very end, and I figured it might look good when I'm applying to the B school if I'm taking a business school class already, even though you usually do have to be a major already to sign up for it. Got an A- in that, and I definitely recommend if you want to go to the B school, trying to take a business class beforehand, even though I did get rejected this semester, but it helped later on. Com 113 I took because it got me out of another credit, and also because I wanted to get better at public speaking, and I genuinely think it did help with that a little bit, and I managed to pull out an A at the end. I did spend a lot of time on my final paper and 3 main speeches you give throughout this semester. So yeah, that's that. Intro to sport admin. Obviously I work in sports business now, so in sophomore year I was thinking about that as a potential career option, so that's why I took that class. Honestly a little more difficult than you might expect, but because this was COVID again, I had a lot more time and could focus on these, so I got an A. Mejo 153, another intro to Mejo class. This was at the point where I was like, okay, I might not get into the B school, so I should probably start taking Mejo classes as a backup. So I did that because it was one of the required ones. It introduced me to a lot of stuff in like the journalism part of Mejo, and was quite a bit of work. It was a pretty steep learning curve after not having like written articles and stuff like that before, but I managed to get an A- in that. So yeah, no pass fails on the semester, even though that was allowed, and no B's. So 2020 fall was pretty solid, and I brought my GPA up. Spring of sophomore year, Econ 400. I took that solely because at this point I was thinking of doing an econ double major alongside Mejo, and I think right now it's considered a bit of a harder class, but back then it wasn't really. Whoever the professor was back then was pretty chill, and I was able to get an A in that. English 149 was a pretty interesting class. I took that for my LA credit, I want to say. Not too much work. I recommend if they still teach it. Major 121, again, this is when I started my major, so I was just taking major classes at this point. Shout out MC Madison Cavalcari, my professor for that class was so nice. Yeah, one of my favorite classes at UNC for sure, and I got an A in it, which is probably part of that reason. Again, another major class that you're required to take at some point. Usually people take this one junior or senior year, but I decided to take it sophomore year because I just had an open slot that semester and I managed to pull out an A in it. And then this SPL 400 C-Start 1. It was like a weird pass-fail only 1 credit seminar-esque class about random topics and like data visualization. I don't know. I just took it because I thought it was interesting. And shout out Helen. They're all taught by like honor student seniors. So yeah, that was just like an hour every week. Didn't really do anything for me, but it was cool. And yeah, at this point my GPA was a 3.77. Junior year, we're back on campus at this point. Everything is fairly normal. I took Busy 521 as a business school elective credit because at this point I was submitting my application to the minor. Very weird, kind of interesting class, kind of pointless class. I still to this day don't know how we graded it. I got an A in it. That's all that mattered at this point. And then we get to my lowest grade of college, Econ 420. Like I said, at this point, I was still thinking of doing an Econ BA double major alongside Mejo. So that's why I took it. No other reason. One of my biggest regrets. I ended up getting a C+ in it, which again is like, depending on your standards, that might not be terrible, but at this point, I was kind of wishing it was still a code so I could pass fail it, but that wasn't an option. And I didn't pass fail it here because obviously it contributed to what I thought one of my majors would be. So be sure about your major before you don't pass fail class for it. So yeah, I didn't like that class. I don't mind macro as a topic, but respectfully to the professor and to myself, it just wasn't for me. Mejo 352, again, one of the most interesting classes I've taken in all of college, which again, you probably can infer that based on what it's about. Andy Friedman, great professor. Don't know how I got A- in it. When half of our homework was like to watch sports games and talk about how they were filming certain shots and whatnot. I think I just did pretty bad on some of the quizzes, which is my fault. But yeah, that also contributed as an elective to my Mejo major, and so did Mejo 588. That was like a level 3 Mejo class that I needed. Also pretty interesting. Shout out Stephen King, and managed to clutch up an A in that one. So pretty good semester other than Econ 420. Spring of junior year. This is when I get into the business minor, so I have to start taking the classes for that. Busy 406 is one of them. It's about marketing, which I was interested in. All of the Kino classes are fairly difficult, even if you think you know what you're doing. So I got a B+ in that, which I think I deserved A-. Corporate finance was not my class. I know some people are good at it, some people don't find it crazy hard. I did not like that class. I very quickly realized the finance part of business is not for me. And yeah, I had a like a B- throughout the whole semester. I ended up with a B-. But again, couldn't pass fail any of those because they were contributing to my minor. And then because I took Econ 420 and I did pretty bad in it, I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna let this go to waste. I'm gonna finish up that Econ BA. So I took Econ 460. Again, it was like kind of interesting, but I just wasn't doing great at it. And this was the class where I was like, okay, Econ probably isn't for me, and I probably shouldn't continue with this major. Yeah, I didn't do terrible. I probably would have ended up with like a B-. Because at this point I've like surrendered that I'm not doing the major. There's no point in taking that hit on my GPA, so I pass-failed it. And then PR writing, again, another Mejo class. Very useful one, good teacher, but it's a writing class, so they grade very strictly, and I ended up with a B+ in that. So GPA dropped almost fully by like 0.1 here. Summer between junior and senior year, I go abroad. I get 9 credits this summer, and 6 of those were in the span of a month. So I went to the Netherlands for 2 weeks for the business school for a sustainability course. That was an elective. So I got 3 elective credits for that for the business school. 2 weeks later, I go on another 2-week program in Singapore for the media and journalism school. Same kind of deal, 3 credits. There's like 1 final paper at the end, and then you're obviously there for 2 weeks doing stuff every day. That's the quickest 6 credits I've ever got. I got an A in the Mejo one, I got an A- in the business one, which I was a little disappointed about, but maybe my final paper wasn't the best. And then on the second session of that summer, I ended up taking Mejo 341. This is one of the hardest Mejo classes, and I kind of learned my lesson from taking Econ over the summer, that the harder the class, the better it is to take over the summer. And this professor, shout out Joe, was the same one that was on the Singapore trip with us, so I was very familiar with him. And it was a pretty straightforward class, difficult, but even though I was working an internship at this time, I watched the remote class after work. Yeah, managed to get an A in that. And then senior year, I'll try to speed through this. Busy 4.3, again, just another business class that I thought I was going to be pretty good at, but I kind of, like, I had an A- at the beginning, and then the second half of the semester just kind of took me out. I ended up getting a B-. Z411 was the last class I needed for my business minor. Got a B in that. So business minor didn't treat me too well, honestly, but you know what? I can have Keenan Flagler on my degree now, and that's what matters. And I passed everything, so there we go. Sports and the media was a very interesting 1-credit MEJO class. I don't think I needed it, but it's really useful and not that hard to get an A in. HO 376, sports marketing, again, very relevant to what I wanted to do in the future. Got an A- in that. 477 with Gary K. Great class, I recommend if you're doing MEJO. Social media analytics was a class I was a little afraid to take because it was back into like Python and coding and stuff, which if you remember, Comp 116 didn't go too well. But I ended up doing it because I know it's like really useful and helpful in the industry that I wanted to go into. So I did it, and I actually ended up clutching up an A with that. So I was pretty surprised by that. And I was glad I took it in the end. And then 2020 spring. Branding and Me is kind of like a follow-up to 477. So that was a good class to learn about like LinkedIn and how to, you know, just brand yourself for the future. Media Hub was my capstone class that I took for my major. It was a lot of like real world reporting on stories and like being a PR spokesperson for a group and getting articles published, that kind of stuff. I got a B+ in it. I think that was a fair grade. My professor was the former dean of the MEJO school, Susan King. Phil 163, my last gen ed that I needed that I'd been pushing off for 2 years was PH. So I finally ended up doing it here, and I got a B in it. Philosophy just wasn't my thing. So much like theoretical. I don't know what I was expecting from philosophy. I've never taken a class like that before. And I just took 2 classes for fun, even though I could have stopped at 9 credits and underloaded. Squash and swimming, which I just got A's in, obviously. And that's basically it for the transcript. I forgot to record an outro, but basically what I want y'all to gain from this is, first of all, don't get too attached to a major in your freshman and even sophomore year. And if it's what you really think you want to do, it might not end up being the right choice. Obviously, take the classes for it. But if you start to feel like it's not your thing, don't be afraid to switch. How you do college differently. I would not have taken the last 2 or 3 econ classes that I did because they ended up being pointless in the end. They hurt my GPA. Did I learn a few things? Yes, but was it worth it? Probably not, because instead I could have taken another class that was super interesting to me, which to that effect, take classes that are super interesting to you. College is one of the few times where you'll actually get the chance to do that, and as you probably saw throughout my schedule, there are a couple of classes that you just wouldn't really think of being classes, and you'd probably genuinely really enjoy. So if you see one of those, just go ahead and sign up for it, even if it doesn't fully get you a credit that you need. And if it's related to something that you want to work in the future, then you might end up getting connections from there. And then yeah, don't let one really bad grade deter you. That happens to almost everyone at some point in college, and remember, it's 3 credits out of 100, 150 total, and that's not going to have that big of an effect. So yes, maintain your GPA and try to get the best grades possible, but don't put everything into it. It's just a small part of the big puzzle that is what happens after you graduate. So yeah, hopefully this is all helpful at whatever stage of college, high school, whatever that you're in, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace. Go Heels.